of station staff, management, and advertisers.
Liberalism is back in style. Welcome to the evolution.
What if you knew Fox News was just lying to you? How could you watch when you know?
He was voted Variety Entertainer of the Year at the Excellence in the Arts Award. And is one of the highest Arbitrum, now Nielsen-rated talk radio hosts in Las Vegas. He is also a refreshing voice of logic and reason. Live from the entertainment capital of the world, Doug Basham.
And good morning, my fellow wokes and Republican jokes. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Doug Basham, and welcome to the Doug Basham Show right here on KSHP in Las Vegas and on social media, and to a genuine demonstration of excellence in broadcasting. Hey, everybody. Great to see you all again. Oh, I'm getting that echo. I am Doug Basham, card-carrying member in good standing, I might add, of the Enemy Within Brigade, also known as one sick, radical leftist lunatic who needs to be handled by the American military. My website is DougBasham.com, last name spelled B as in Bob, A-S-H-A-M as in Mary, DougBasham.com, my email, Doug@DougBasham.com. That said, I extend a hearty welcome and a happy Halloween to those of you listening on KSHP, AM 1400 and 107.1 FM on your radio dial here in Las Vegas. We are also broadcasting on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, TikTok, and of course, Twitter/X. And in case you've forgotten why Elon Musk changed the name of Twitter to X, it's so that Trump supporters would be able to spell it. And because today is Halloween, I feel compelled to remind you what Donald Trump and pumpkins have in common. They're both orange, hollow on the inside, and should be thrown in the garbage in early November. Now, if you go to my website, again, DougBasham.com, you will discover it's all of one page. At the top, you'll find the show's logo. Underneath, 10 links, most to my social media sites. Also want to contact me via email. Now, the two links I'd like to call your attention to the most are, 1, my YouTube page, and 2, my TikTok page. On my YouTube page, I would respectfully ask you hit the subscribe button. On TikTok, please hit the red follow button. They were supposed to be shown on the screen. For some reason, they're not. Now, if you would like to watch the show live and not just listen to it, reason being, when I play clips, I don't play audio clips, I play video clips. From my website, you can go to either my YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter/X pages, whereupon you can indeed watch the show live. And if I violate YouTube policies and they suspend my stream mid-show, just go back to my website, then go to my Facebook or Twitter/X page. And by the way, another reason to watch this show live, it will remove any doubt in your mind why so many people, including big brawny men who have never cried before in their lives, have approached me with tears in their eyes and said that this is a face for television. 221-7283 is our call-in number here at the station, folks. If you would like to talk on the radio somewhere in our second half hour together, that's 702-221-SAVE, as in Save Our Democracy, which is our ultimate and only goal in each and every show we do. And as the venerable Joy Behar said recently on The View,
I mean, he's cost a lot. I think we should lock him up now.
Well, some of.
And speaking of Halloween, as you can see, I'm ready. I have my best red blood shirt on. And you know, I once went to a Halloween party dressed as a chicken. I met a girl there who was dressed as an egg. Later that night, she came back to my place with me, and a question as old as time was answered. It was the chicken. And there was this other guy who was there. He was completely naked except for a potato on the end of his penis. I asked him, "Who are you supposed to be?" And he said, "Donald Trump." I said, "Excuse me?" And he said, "A dictator." And did you know that Jehovah's Witnesses don't celebrate Halloween? Yeah, apparently they don't appreciate random people coming up to their door. And do you know what Dracula's girlfriend and a bad boxer have in common? They both go down for the count. One Halloween, I gave my wife a pair of crotchless panties. Nothing sexual. I just wanted her to have a better grip on her broom. And I remember Halloween back in 2020, the year of COVID. If you really wanted to scare someone that year, you went trick-or-treating without a mask. True story. That same year, I wanted to go out as an anti-vaxxer. I just couldn't fit my head that far up my ass. Kamala Harris has been making her campaign's closing argument. I would like to repeat mine. It isn't new, but it is as brilliant today as it was the first time I uttered it, maybe even more so. And I will start with a disturbing stat from a new ABC Ipsos poll that found that 49% of Americans believe Donald Trump is a fascist. The bad news, 8% of those who think he's a fascist support him anyway. You hear that sound? Way off in the distance, kind of like a windy wailing sound, as if it were voices crying out from the past. Sounds an awful lot to me like those voices are coming from 1930s Germany. And in this election, folks, you're not just voters. You are skilled surgeons. You are oncologists. And you have a chance to expunge the cancer that has been eating this country alive from the inside out for the past 9 years. And after 9 years of needing therapy, you now have a chance to be chemotherapy. If you are a patriot who truly loves this country, you know what you need to do. You know what your country commands of you. You know what your democracy demands of you. And it's not a matter of politics or policies or loyalty to your party. It is a matter of loyalty to your country. And as such, you simply cannot put Donald Trump back in the White House. It's not a matter of partisanship. It's a matter of survival, our democracy's survival. It's a matter of patriotism. Patriotism to what this country can remain and not to what it could become. As JFK once so historically said, ask what you can do for your country. And that is much easier now than back then, because today you already know the answer. As one meme I saw over the weekend said, let the world know you're in a committed relationship, vote. Next Tuesday is our ultimate test as a freedom and democracy-loving people. And, as is always the case with tests, we will either pass or we will fail. And the consequences, if we fail, will be far worse than summer school. Thank you. Or as the king would say,
Thank you very much.
And on that note, that vote note, let's get to our breaking news for the day. As Kamala Harris continues to make her closing argument, at this stage of the campaign, we high information liberal voters pretty much know her stump speech as well as she does. So I'm not going to replay clips we've already played just from other rallies, but there was one moment from her rally in Pennsylvania yesterday that I thought was just golden. At one point, some jackwad in the audience started heckling her, to which the audience started chanting, "Kamala, Kamala," in order to drown the protester out. It was what Harris said after that that was what they call a mic drop moment.
Which is why my plan will also lower the cost of child care. Cut taxes for small businesses and lower health care costs, because I believe health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. On the other hand, Donald Trump's answer to financial pressures is for you to face the same deal. Here's the thing. Let me say something. We are 6 days out of an election. We are 6 days away from an election. And ours is about a fight for democracy and your right to be heard. That is what is on the line in this election. That is what is on the line in this election. Look, everybody has a right to be heard, but right now I am speaking.
Damn, that's going to leave a mark. Mama Bear got mad, and she put that disrespectful protester right in their place. And yet, some of you think she's not tough enough to meet and deal with people you think won't take her seriously because she's a woman? You just discovered the opposite is true. With Kamala Harris as our president, if you want to F around, you're going to find out. And speaking of Pennsylvania, a good sign that Trump thinks he's losing in that state, he's already started complaining about it. This is what he posted on his anti-social media site yesterday. Quote, "Pennsylvania is cheating and getting caught at large-scale levels rarely seen before." And then in all caps, "Report cheating to authorities. Law enforcement must act now." End quote. Trump isn't just a pathological liar. He is a transparent one. And these tells he has when he sells his lies, they have become obvious to anyone with an IQ above that of a kitchen fork. At levels rarely seen before. No one's ever seen anything like it. The likes of which the world has never seen. I mean, this over-the-top, bombastic, dishonest shtick has really gotten old, folks, and they and he are way past their best if sold by dates. And if you're still falling for them, you know what they say. If you can't recognize a con man, congratulations, you're the mark. But you know what that'll lead to, right? Members of Trump's brain-dead mega cult base calling authorities just like they did in 2020 and saying, "I saw voter fraud," when in reality, they didn't see jack shisky. And this will just waste time and resources and manpower that could and should be spent elsewhere for no good reason whatsoever except that their orange god told them there was fraud. Oh, I made a rhyme. Also yesterday, Al Schmidt, a Republican who was also the Secretary of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, said, quote, "We know there is already a lot of mis- and disinformation about Pennsylvania's elections, and it's likely to continue in the coming days and weeks ahead." End quote. Surprisingly, Mr. Schmidt failed to mention exactly where and from whom said disinformation is emanating. probably because he's scared schmittless about the inevitable death threats that would ensue if he did. And of course, Trump has filed a lawsuit against one county, Bucks County in Pennsylvania, ironically claiming that his voters were being turned away from, wait for it, receiving mail-in ballots. You can't make this stuff up, folks. The guy who told you mail-in voting was just rife with fraud is now complaining, without evidence as usual, that his voters can't get mail-in ballots. Yesterday was also the day Steve Bannon was released from prison. And his first words, he encouraged Trump to lie and say he won this year's election earlier than he lied and said he won the 2020 election.
President Trump came up at 2:30 in the morning and talked. He should have done it at 11 o'clock at night in 2020. Okay? I am urging President Trump, if the votes come in like it looks like they're going to come in, he should step up and inform the American citizens of exactly what's going on and not keep people in the dark like was done in 2020.
Yeah, he should have lied to his brain-dead MAGA cult base and the American people earlier in 2020. Don't wait till 2:30 in the morning to lie to them and keep them in the dark. Lie to them and take them out of the dark at 11 o'clock at night. You know, when it's not as dark outside. One prankster who identified himself as Robbie Roadsteamer trolled Bannon, asking when the next insurrection would be.
Steve, Robbie Roadsteamer here. I'm wondering, when's the next insurrection, and can we storm the Burger King after this? Like, can we do that? I mean, doesn't he look great now? We were in Danbury the first month together. He looks great. You don't remember me? We were lifting weights and stuff in the weight room. When's the next insurrection? How are we going to do this and stuff, man? You know what? If I'm leaving, I'm having a good time. He looks like Yoda with AIDS right now. Robbie Roadsteamer, no political violence, people. This place smells like mothballs. Wow, over here, where's the elevator? I'm not even going to get, like, hors d'oeuvres or something.
Nope, no hors d'oeuvres for Robbie Roadsteamer. And did you notice? Bannon was wearing his signature multiple shirts. Could have multiple shirts on too. Who knows? He was wearing his signature multiple shirts, and he looked like his dermatologist either retired or died or was out of the network. Someone on X posted that Steve Bannon looks like the alcohol-drenched hotel bed that the Russian prostitutes peed on. He also said Bannon looks like he woke up in a ditch after drinking hand sanitizer and snorting coke the night before. Another poster tweeted that Bannon looks like the guy in the office who's finally given a deodorant by HR after multiple coworker complaints. Yet another posted that Bannon looks like the mugshot of your fired high school teacher who was just charged with inappropriate behavior with an underage boy at a highway restaurant stop. Someone else said Bannon looks like a sausage that's gone past its sell-by date, but you're too afraid to sniff it. And finally, Alex, I remember the day Bannon was kicked out of the White House. We all breathed a sigh of relief and said, we did not see that coming. And of course, the right-wing propaganda hate media is doing their part to set Trump up to claim voter fraud. How? The same way they did in 2020, by telling their audience that Trump is going to win this thing in a landslide.
Joe, how's it going to end?
Landslide for Trump electorally. He wins every swing state.
They are throwing everything they can, as Donald Trump's early voting numbers are great, as his odds in the betting markets are ascendant.
It's over.
Donald Trump's got this.
I don't see where the votes come from for Kamala Harris. She's not a good candidate, and the issues are on the side of Donald Trump. He wins this. He wins this quite easily. Save the tape. Play it back if I'm wrong.
The race is over, but the integrity of the election is still in question.
Yep. When you tell your audience he's going to win in a landslide, it makes them much more amenable and receptive for when Trump then says the election was either rigged or stolen from him. He was going to win in a landslide. He lost. This can't be. And of course, the shameless, tiny-fingered emperor wannabe and pathological liar is more than doing his part on the campaign trail.
They're going to cheat. They cheat. That's all they want to do is cheat. And when you see this, it's the only way they're going to win. And we can't let that happen, and we can't let it happen again. We're going to have no country.
Are they cheating, Michael? They're trying, but are they? They're not going to get away with it, right?
If we win and when we win, we're going to prosecute people that cheat on this election. And if we can, we'll go back to the last one, too.
Could you imagine any circumstances under which you would be defeated but not say that the election was stolen?
If it was a corrupt election, that could happen.
Do you anticipate to declare victory on election night?
I hope that we're going to declare a victory. I mean, they spend all that money on machines. It's like very sad when you get machines, you pay all that money, and they talk about 3 days later. I think we're going to have a big enough victory to maybe have it that night.
Yep, he's going to take Bannon's advice and lie earlier. Donald Trump is barfing up the same dog's breakfast he did back in 2016 and then again in 2020, laying the dishonest groundwork to try one more time to steal an election. And his methodology, by destroying as many people's faith as he can in one of the most important institutions necessary for our democracy's survival, our very electoral process. Democrats claim to be ready for him. I truly hope they are. But in all honesty, as much as I'm both looking forward to this election and dreading it, I have almost equal feelings of dread for what will happen after the election. First, if Trump wins and what that'll mean for our country. But second, if he loses and what attempts he'll try to overturn it, and even maybe what success he might have in so doing. But we'll be here every step of the way to document this most pivotal and critical time in our nation's history. But I have a question. If and when Trump loses, what approach will Fox take? We know they won't blame the machines for Trump's loss. They did that 4 years ago, and it cost them a cool $787 million. Will it be those dastardly illegals and vermin who are poisoning the blood of our nation that are voting? Dead people voting? Fraudulent mail-in ballots? Oh, no, wait. It can't be the mail-in ballots. Trump has already filed suit because his supporters and voters can't get mail-in ballots. So what lies will Fox be comfortable spewing? We do know that spew they will. They've already started, as you just heard. Trump's going to win in a landslide, don't you know? And if I didn't know better, I would go out on a limb and say it's really starting to appear that Team Trump is planning to run the exact same stolen/rigged election con and crime they did in 2020, which in a way is kind of disappointing. You'd think after 4 years, they'd at least have come up with some concepts of a different plan to steal the election. There is one difference, however. As I've said, granted, Trump does not have the power or resources he had back when he was still the acting president. But he has spent the past 4 years installing Trump loyalists in powerful election administration positions. And he's even shouted them out when they've attended his Klan-demic rallies, which they shouldn't be doing. They are supposed to be neutral arbiters of free and fair elections. They're not supposed to be accomplices for a candidate, especially a candidate who's a felon, traitor, and dictator wannabe. But again, if they're not, death threats anyone? Maybe they're scared Schmittless too. But it turns out Trump was right. There is voter fraud taking place right now in Indiana. And as is invariably the case, it's being done by Republicans. The Indiana Star carried this headline yesterday, quote, former GOP congressional candidate arrested on allegations of Madison County ballot theft, end quote. And is it just me, or does this guy look an awful lot like Alex Jones's older brother? What a burden, although I'm sure he'd take it as a compliment. A bit from the story, quote, Larry Lee Savage, of course that's his name, Larry Lee, Billy Bob, Festus, Beauregard, Cletus Deacon Savage, a former Republican 5th Congressional District candidate, turned himself into authorities Tuesday morning after he was charged with stealing ballots during a public test of voting machines in Madison County. Before voting, get this is interesting. Before voting machines can be used in Indiana elections, they are tested in front of political parties' representatives, candidates, media, and the general public. Savage was elected a precinct committee man, a local political party leader during the May Republican primary, and was participating in a public voting machine test in Madison County on October 3rd. In the test, officials manually calculate results from pre-marked ballots. People attending the test are then invited to run those ballots through the voting machines to make sure the computerized systems counted accurately. So, what this Republican cheat did, this Larry Lee Savage, I mean, come on. Does that sound like a made-up name? Larry Lee Savage, what he did was he stole ballots. What he said, quote, to F up the count, end quote. So he could turn around and say the voting machines failed the test, which he then did. And even though they were testing the machines, they weren't test ballots. They were legitimate live ballots that had been cast in this election. And everybody present at that test was told that. Unfortunately for Mr. Savage, there were surveillance cameras that were operating, and they showed Savage stuffing the ballots into his pocket. And get this Republican moron, but aren't they all? When they examined his cell phone, they found a text that this Republican simpleton sent to one Catherine Callahan, a former Republican Madison County auditor candidate, in which he said, quote, sis, they say anything about the ballots I took? End quote. But you know what? It sounds better when someone else says it. So I'm going to turn things over now to Channel 4 in Madison County, who said this in their report.
According to court documents, investigators also searched his phone and found a text that morning reading, sis, they say anything about the ballots I took? Investigators also say he posted on a social media page condemning Madison County election procedures after taking those ballots. Police found the ballots in his truck later that day.
This is one of the worst things that can happen, given the national climate about integrity of elections, to intentionally steal ballots and then attack the system. I can't imagine a bigger disservice to our community than that.
To which Donald Trump quickly replied, hold my beer. After which he quickly added, you ain't seen nothing yet. Baby, you ain't seen nothing yet. Again, every Trump accusation is a confession. And I'm looking over here at the screen. It shows that I'm fuzzy. Watch this expertise. Watch me fix this in just a matter of seconds. The screen will go black here for a second, and then voila, no more fuzzy. But again, every Trump accusation is a confession. And of course, on social media, this Larry Savage imbecile describes himself as a MAGA candidate because, of course, he does. But this is what you get when the de facto leader of your party has demonstrated time and time again that he has no respect for the rule of law or our electoral process or our democracy, which depends on Americans' people's faith in these institutions in order for our democracy to endure. Trump was willing to disenfranchise 81 million people's votes. What's a pocketful more? And this also demonstrates that this Larry Savage knows damn well that all these charges of voter fraud, or in this case, voting machine malfunction or malfeasance, he knows they're all lies. If he believed they were true, why would he feel the need to break the law and try and undermine faith in the machines? Why would he try and make it look like they were unreliable? I mean, wouldn't these voting machines just screw up on their own if the lies the right was telling about them were true? Yeah, they would. In short, Larry Savage effed around and Larry Savage found out. Take a bow, MAGA bonehead. Now I'm feeling better because I effed around and found out for sure. And while we're on this topic of voter fraud and stolen/rigged elections, please allow me to set a couple things straight. First, Trump's claim, repeated ad nauseum by both his right-wing propaganda hate media and his brain-dead MAGA cult base, that his lawsuits after the 2020 election were all dismissed without the merits of even one case being heard. That is a lie. A group of Republican-affiliated election lawyers and legal scholars from Stanford University's Hoover Institution reviewed all 64 of Trump's lawsuits that challenged the 2020 election. They found that only 20 had been dismissed by judges before a hearing on the merits. In 30 cases, the rulings against Trump came after hearings on the merits. Trump and his media never tell their base and their audience that nugget. And they certainly don't tell them this. In the remaining 14 cases the report found, Trump and his allies dropped the lawsuits before they even got to the merits phase. The report states, quote, "In many cases, after making extravagant claims of wrongdoing, Trump's legal representatives showed up in court or state proceedings empty-handed, and then returned to their rallies and media campaigns to repeat the same unsupported claims," end quote. Exactly. Trump's lawyers sang a whole different tune when they were in court. So, I mean, as for, I just thought of something else. As for this claim that we need to go to paper ballots, here are the facts. The facts. In 2020, more than 90% of the election jurisdictions in the U.S. used paper ballots. That's according to the Brennan Center for Justice. The next year, the very next year, the Federal Election Assistance Commission changed its guidelines to recommend that every jurisdiction use paper. The only state to not use a voting system with paper ballots or a paper trail of any sort is Republican-run Louisiana. The more you know. Okay, let's get serious now. I got 2 or 3 clips here from Matthew Dowd I'd like to play. Matthew was the chief strategist for the Bush-Cheney campaign back in 2004. And I think we should take his words under advisement and perhaps maybe find some hope in them as well. The first has to do with the number of voters who have distanced themselves from the orange pus gut since his Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden. And what most people agree, Matthew included, it all comes down to voter turnout.
It's a lot like the people of color's version of Mark Cuban, who's made the same argument. It's just like, I got to know Donald Trump, and as soon as I got to know him and figured out who he was, I don't want him anywhere near the White House. And that's what's happening, I think, with a lot of these folks who kind of like, oh, he's kind of funny, he says crazy stuff, and isn't that interesting? He's a celebrity. But now that they've gotten to know him and his progeny, and his progeny is everybody that was speaking at that Madison Square Gardens things, is they figured it out in the course of this. I think one of the things that we have to constantly remind folks of why things in the end have impact, especially this year, is even though we've sort of think about it 4 years ago, Joe Biden barely won. Joe Biden barely beat Donald Trump. Joe Biden won Pennsylvania by 1 percentage point. Joe Biden won Wisconsin by 20,000 votes. Joe Biden won Nevada by a few thousand votes. Joe Biden won Arizona by a few thousand votes. Joe Biden won Georgia by a few thousand votes. And so a few thousand votes either changed by the fact that now they see Donald Trump for who they are, which is Latinos, Puerto Ricans, or anybody else that no longer thinks, oh yeah, he is a racist, this is who he is. Those folks, and then the people that, as Sarah was saying, the people that may hear bits and pieces of the vice president's talk yesterday, which I thought was pitch perfect as well. I don't think people are undecided at this point. I think what they are is unmotivated. And if you think about, there's 250 million potential Americans to vote, right? At best, we're going to get 165, 170 million. That means there's 80 million potential Americans that aren't going to vote, that are registered, that are there, that live in these states. And so her argument to me, and all the things she's saying that I think she's going to be consistent in the next week, and mistakes Donald Trump makes, is motivating somebody that doesn't like either political party, that's sort of fed up, that thinks nothing's going to change, and they hear bits and pieces of information in the end, may motivate this large pool of voters that right now is not going to turn out.
You know, I get Matthew's point, but I think the non-voters to whom he was referring, I don't think the problem is that they're not motivated. I could be wrong, I hope I am, but I don't think that's the problem. I think they're just disengaged. They don't pay attention to politics. You see, one of the negative elements of living in a democracy is that you don't have to participate in it. You can just ignore it and go on with your life until you can ignore it no longer, which will be the case if Trump manages to steal this election, in which case it will likely be too late for them to start paying attention. And again, I hope Matthew was right, that some of these non-voters just might not be motivated enough, but might be motivated by hearing some of Kamala Harris's plans. But what I fear is that because they're disengaged and don't pay attention to politics, they might not even hear them. But again, this is another instance whereby I hope the person I'm disagreeing with proves me 100% wrong. The second clip has to do with the always confusing polling.
Let me ask you a question about, we don't have a model for that, right? Because a polling model is predicated on a guess about turnout. Can you explain that, Matt?
Sure. So this is my huge problem with all these poll aggregators and everything that's done is the poll aggregators and all these analysts take a poll and just accept the poll and sort of say, let's talk about the overall number or the number of how women are doing and all that. And if the model is off, none of those numbers matter. So if you don't have the right percentage of people that are going to vote that are college educated, that are white, that are people of color, that are women, all of the sort of numbers that you need and partisanship in the course of this, if you model it based on an election that happened before 2016, 2020, 2022, whatever the election you had, you may miss the movements of people today. And almost every single model, Nicole, every single model is premised on voting behavior. And it's not premised on the large pool of Americans that are potentially there who aren't likely to vote but could vote if they're motivated properly. And that's why I say give a huge truckload of salt to these aggregators and to all these people that are giving odds and all of that, because their models, like it has been, like it was wrong in 2022, like it was wrong in 2016, their models are not premised on the current views of the American public as they exist today, whether they have voted before or not.
So, to the pollsters, encouraging somewhat, yes? And finally, Dowd brings up an element of campaigning we don't hear too much about: data.
The question becomes who can be moved in the final 6 days, and
what's the answer to that question? You know, what's the answer?
Well, I think I know. I mean, I think there's 2 or 3% that's still sitting there, especially in these 7 states, that can easily be adjusted for election day. So I think she's on message. I think he's off message. I'd rather be her than him at this point in time. I'd take a look at all the data. I mean, one thing I want to say before we go is one thing people have to realize is that when you look at a close election and you analyze it, you're going to get lots of pieces of data. Some are going to be bad, some are going to be neutral, and some are going to be good. What you're looking for is a majority of the data points to be good. And yesterday, a majority of the data points have been good for her. Some were bad, a few, some were neutral, but majority were good. Today, the majority of data points are good for her. And that's all you can count on, is all the data points, look for a majority of them, and the majority are good. And what she's doing, I think, is effective.
Indeed. 221-7283 is our call-in number here at the station, folks. If you want to chat on the radio, that's 702-221-SAVE, as in Save Our Democracy. Let's head to the phones, and we'll start with Armando. You are first. Thanks for calling, sir.
Yeah, thank you for answering my call. And let's see, there's a columnist for the LA Times. She had an article today, or yesterday. Okay. And she starts off with, there's a colloquialism, informal conversation, said in the black community, where they're trying to decide whether they're going to attend any kind of event, social gathering, whatever. And they'll ask, who all over there, quote unquote. And let's see, who all over there isn't simply about who's in attendance. It's about the energy of the space, who is embraced and who is loosely attached. All right, so yes, Trump rallies sometimes have people of color in attendance. Many women, black and white, attend his rallies. And let's see, others are LGBTQ people and Puerto Ricans, because notwithstanding some time ago during her last hurricane, not the last one, maybe last year I think, and Trump was lobbying paper towels.
Right. Now, Armando, let me ask you: are you telling me what was in this article in the LA Times?
Oh, she's a columnist for LA Times.
Right, and she's saying all these people are...
Las Vegas Sun.
Hold on. Armando, hold on. So this columnist is making the point that there are black people there, Puerto Ricans, members of the LGBTQ community. Is that the point she's making?
Well, it's all over there. You can. I would think that's the point. Yeah.
So in other words, would you say in its apologist piece saying, oh, Trump isn't that bad. Look, there's Puerto Ricans there. There's gay people. There's trans. There's black people. There's Hispanic. There's Puerto Ricans. Is that the case she was making?
I don't know. I didn't take it that way. No, I just thought that she's...
How did you take it?
Like, she was making a point that, Trump rallies hold everybody there. But like she said, they are embraced, let's see, Those are, there's in that space people are embraced, and others are what loosely attached. Because as soon as the it's the okay.
Don't
because
stop.
MAGA is a space that temporarily tolerates those who are different for the sake of votes and take elections.
No, it doesn't. I'm Armando. I am completely lost. I don't know if you're telling me what you're thinking or what this columnist for the LA Times is thinking. I mean, I'm just totally confused. You have lost me, brother. Is she making an apology piece saying, well, everybody can go to a Trump rally and be accepted? Because that's not the case.
Well, no, they're accepted as long as they are useful to the campaign. They vote for them, but once it's over, they turn away from them.
Okay, I guess that makes sense, Armando. Thanks for calling. I appreciate it. Again, folks, I'm lost. If you can help me make sense of what we just heard, please feel free to do so. I have no clue what Armando was telling me or what this LA columnist is writing. I wish I'd gotten her name. I'd look up and read it. Well, maybe I can find it anyway. I'll go to the LA Times. But I'm sorry. I'm just kind of speechless because after that phone call, I'm equally clueless. What can I say? 221-7283 is our call-in number here at the station, folks. If you would like to chat, that's 702-221-SAVE. Back to the phones we had, and we'll talk to our most excellent caller, Forrest. You're next. Thanks for calling.
Hey, Doug. Nice show. Just a couple of things. We both live in Las Vegas, and in the past 10 years, there's only been two people that have been arrested for fraud and voter fraud. Both were very high-level Republican operatives, and they made the newspapers. One worked in a bank building. She was at a wheel, and they actually handcuffed her, perp walked her out in front of the press. But and the other worked for that equipment company. Anyway, so there's been two cases. Both of them were Republicans. Now Trump has said he's right to start worrying about Pennsylvania because I've said this before. Pennsylvania, the latest numbers are that the Dems are outvoting, and this is over 1.5 million votes, are outvoting the Repubs by over 24%, which is an insurmountable lead. And these are hard count. These aren't polls. This is from the Secretary of State, which means that Pennsylvania has already, I mean, they're going to continue to vote, of course, but Pennsylvania has already gone to the Dems, and Wisconsin and Michigan are never more than a point away from Pennsylvania. So those 3 points are already in her column. In other words, the election, we have to keep voting. Everybody has to keep voting. But if this trend continues in any way, shape, or form, she is our next president. And anyway, nice talking to you, and have a good one.
Hey, you too, Forrest. Thanks for calling. 221-7283 is the number. Back to the phones we had, and we'll talk to Bob. You're next. Thanks for calling.
Hi, Doug. How are you?
Good, Bob. How are you?
I've been better, but thanks for asking. I think as soon as the last poll closes, the election poll closes in Hawaii, they need to take him into custody and be done with it. And then cut the head off the snake, and it's over. I'm so sick of listening to his voice. I was like, makes my skin crawl. Like, I said to my friend, I go, I'm gonna have a heart attack. Hearing him.
Well, and you know, Bob, it wouldn't be as bad. You're right. Listening to his voice is bad enough, but listening to all the lies and all the embellishments and all the exaggerations, I mean, it just gets to a point where you would think that even the most diehard enmeshed cult member would be able to see through it and say, you know what? This guy says the same thing every day, and he exaggerates it beyond any realm of reality. You would think at some point they could see through it. Unfortunately, cult members seldom do.
Lies, and more lies. That's all it is. And he's such a disgusting human being. And hopefully, when it's all said and done, he rots in jail.
Yeah, no
anyway,
question.
Good talking to you, Doug. You're the man.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate you calling. You know, Bob makes a good point. I mean, you can hear the passion in his voice. He is done with Donald Trump. And I think a lot of us are. But like we have to keep saying, the only way to expunge this cancer from our body politic and country is to vote. I mean, Kamala Harris needs to win by 2, 3, 4 points just to compensate for the Electoral College. If she wins by 1, 2%, there's still a good chance Trump could win. I mean, the Electoral College is not on our side. It is on Trump's side. It is very anti-democratic. It is antiquated. It is archaic. It is arcane. There is no reason for us to even have it anymore. But sadly, it would take a constitutional amendment to change. And that's never going to happen because Republicans know that if we were to start electing our president by the popular vote and not the Electoral College, they would never win another presidential election. They know that, and they would fight tooth and nail to prevent any change being made to the outdated Electoral College. Hey, folks, I hear the music. That means we have come to the end of another glorious session together. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you calling. We will do this all over again tomorrow, hopefully with you. Until then, take care.
Doug Basham.
Welcome to Hash House A Go-Go, where we've been serving farm food and crafted cocktails for over 2 decades. Visit us for the full Hash House experience at any of our 5 Las Vegas locations. Hash House A Go-Go is where old school meets new and gets twisted. We bring people together over good food and fun. Come in for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and come hungry because our portions are huge. Visit us online to see our entire menu at hashhouseagogo.com. Hash House A Go-Go. It's a Midwest thing, and there's nothing else like it.
Did you know the cost to American taxpayers of each illegal immigrant is nearly $9,000 per year, according to the Federation for American Immigration Reform?
Total cost since 2021, $72.